Hello, this is Mark Hubbs with Aeroscon Bullet Molds. Today we're going to be talking about lubricating the 44 caliber Kerr revolver bullet. Now, this is not authentic cartridges we're talking today. This is just prepping the bullet for range use, especially for competition shooting. This is essentially the way that I do this for NSSA competition, North-South Skirmish Association. And we'll talk about how to put lubricant in the bottom half of this bullet, just into the grooves, and also how to make up pre-measured powder charges that are easy to use on the range. And I'm talking about actually pre-weighed or measured precision charges. Stick with us and I'll show you how I'll do this. The purpose of lubricating the bullet in this manner is to negate the need of a lubricated wad under the bullet, or by smearing additional grease on top of the bullet in the chamber. The lube in the bullet grooves will do everything that we need it to do. Contrary to popular belief, the grease that everybody smears over their bullet does not prevent chain fires. A tight bullet does that. That grease will help reduce fouling because it softens the fouling and helps the bullet push it out of the bore after every shot, but it does nothing for chain fires. Now let's go over what you'll need to do this, or at least how I do it. You can alter this however you need to make it worthwhile for you. I'm using a hot plate, electric hot plate, as I mentioned before, but notice that it's not the type with the coil grill. It's a flat top one. And you can do it either way if you just want to melt the lube, but there's a great feature about this one that I'll tell you about in a minute, which is why I like the flat top. You'll need something to melt your lube in. In this case, I'm using an old tuna tin, and you want something that'll hold enough, at least a 3/4 of an inch of lube, but not too deep. You want to be able to get in and out of it very easily. And you'll need a pair of needle nose pliers or something to be able to pick up the bullet and dip it into the grease. And this is just a cheap $2 pair that I got from Harbor Freight Tools. It's serrated on the inside, so it does grip a little bit. You'll need something to cool the bullets on after they've been dipped. This is a piece of Kerr, which is countertop material that I just salvaged somewhere, and I put a piece of aluminum foil over it. That way I can pull the aluminum foil off when it gets nasty and replace it. And it's just a nice, flat, cool place to put those bullets after they've come out of the dip. And something to put the bullets in after they have cooled. And what I've found for the Kerr is I like to use this little metal tin box. And that's, the various applications. This one had tea bags in it. Here's one that had Altoids in it. If you remember the old Sucrets, they also came in a tin box like this. And what I've found is that you can put them inside and they'll remain upright and help protect the side of the bullet, keep the dust and grit off of them until you get them to the range to use them. And this one especially works well because it's not too deep and they won't fall over, or at least not many of them. The Altoids box is a little bit deeper, so there's more room to move around. These may fall over a little bit if they're not packed in tight. But anyway, these work great to transport your lubed bullets to the range. Now I put my tuna can on the heater and I'm melting my lube now, and I didn't put it very high. With this, the controls in this go from 1 to 6, which is 6 being max. You really don't need that much. You're not cooking. You're just melting, but you do want a pretty good temperature on it. So I've got it set at about 1.5, and that's going to be more than enough. I'm using today a CS Ordnance Lube mixture, which is 2 parts beeswax and 1 part beef tallow. Now, it varies from time of year what I would use. If I'm using, it's summertime, but I don't expect to shoot all these this summer. Some will maybe next fall. So I'm using that amount because it stays fairly solid during the summer. It doesn't drip off when it gets hot, but it also won't crack off during the wintertime. If it was super hot, I may go to 4 parts wax and 1 part tallow. Now if I need a grease that I smear over a bullet, then it's going to be much softer. I'll probably use like 1 part wax and 1 part lard, which is a soft grease. Tallow is a very hard grease, but it just varies what the application is. So in this case, it's 2 parts beeswax and 1 part tallow. If you've ever dipped lube bullets before, you know that one of the biggest issues is getting too much lube on the bullet. This is especially true during the winter time. If you're out in the garage and you have a cold bullet and you dip it even in very hot grease, it wants to congeal very quickly. So our intent here is to, on the Kerr bullet, is to put as little as possible. Basically, we just want the grooves filled with lube. We don't need a big heavy amount of lubricant on these bullets. So what I do is, after my lube is melted, I'm going to turn it down a little bit more to 1 or even 1/2, and I'm going to put my bullets that I need lubed right on top of this flat surface. Remember, I told you this, that's why the flat surface is probably better than one of the coiled heaters. And I want to get my bullets hot too. Now of course, after I put them on here, I'm going to have to use my pliers to handle them. But this will get the bullet hot, and when you put it into the hot lube, the lubricant will not congeal nearly as quickly, and I'll be able to shake off the excess and put it over onto my little piece of Kerr that we talked about earlier. So I'm going to put a whole tin's worth of bullets on here, and you got to be careful. If you have this too hot and go off and leave it, you may come back with a bunch of melted bullets. My lube is fully melted and it's very hot, and also the bullets are now warmed up. So as I pick them up with my pliers just above the grooves, I'm going to dip them down to just the bottom of the ogive, give them a quick shake, and then set them over to cool. I don't need to go over the whole bullet. I don't need to go over the nose. Just up to the top groove to make sure that top groove is filled. And then as you can see, almost all the grease will shake off. All the lubricant I don't really need. This will also save you a lot of lube too. Now, if you're using a hot plate that you use for other purposes, like I do, this goes in our camper normally. We'll cook outside on it sometimes. You want to make sure that you don't get any of that lubricant on the cooking surface, or someone in the household may be a little mad at you. So I'm going to go and dip all of these, and then after they cool a little bit, I'll show you one up close, and we'll see how much lube is left in them. And here's the results after cooling. Here's a lubricated bullet next to an unlubed one, and you can see that the grooves are filled, but there's very little other lubricant attached to the bullet. Actually, there's a little bit along the bottom edge, but very little in between the grooves, and that's the way we want it. I found that these vials, plastic vials, are excellent for making up pre-measured powder charges. These vials are 2 cubic centimeters, and they hold around 28 or 30 grains of black powder. They have a nice cap that closes. And I assume they're watertight too, I don't know. But they're excellent for making up those pre-measured charges. When I'm working up a load, I may make vials up that start in 2 grain increments. Say if it's a 44, I may start at 18 grains, then have 5 vials at 2 grains higher at each one, 18, 20, 22, 24, and so forth, in the effort to shoot a few and see which one gives me the best group. I also use these for preparing loads for the NSSA competition, North-South Skirmish Association. If I know what my load is, I can put them in these vials and have these bullets greased and ready to go, and it's very a lot less time consuming in between relays when we make up when we load the revolvers. So here I have a scale. People think these are only used for modern powder. I beg to differ. I use it all the time for black powder also, including a precision measure. So in this case, I've got it set up for 22 grains because I've found that that's the best load with the Kerr bullet in all of my Pieta revolvers. They seem to all like about 22 grains with that lubed bullet. So in this case, got my scale set for 22 grains. We'll see if my measure is correct. And you can see it levels out right at 22 grains. So now I can take my vials and just put them under there. And I know I have precisely 22 grains. Now you can, if you're not worried about that kind of precision, you can use a powder measure out of a flask if it's just casual shooting. If you're trying to keep a consistent load, consistent target load, there's no better way than using a precision measure and verifying about every 10 loads with a scale. Well, I hope that was helpful for you. I'll put a link to the vials that I got off of Amazon if you're interested in those, and also a link to the sales page for the Aragon 44 Kerr bullet. Also, just a quick note about us YouTubers. We live and die for ratings. So if you enjoyed the video, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so. Not only is the encouragement good, it also, high traffic will help promote the video to other users within YouTube. So thanks again, and I hope you'll come back and see us again sometime.